You know, whether you realize it or not, if you're watching this, you're using the cloud right now. I mean, we all are. It's how we work, how we stream movies, how we check our email. But as our lives get more and more tangled up in this digital space, one question becomes absolutely crucial. How secure is all this stuff, really? So, this is the question I hear all the time. Is it literally a fluffy white cloud up in the sky? The old joke is the cloud is just someone else's computer. And honestly, that's not entirely wrong. But the real story of where it lives, and more importantly, how it's all secured, is so much more fascinating than that. Okay, let's get into it. So here's what we're going to do in this explainer. First, we'll break down what the cloud even is. Then, we'll look at the different options you have. Your cloud, your choice. After that, we'll get into the most important part, the security handshake. We'll even take a peek inside a real-world cloud setup and figure out how to manage the keys to the kingdom. All right, first things first. What are we actually talking about when we say the cloud? We're going to start with the official, super technical definition, and then, I promise, we'll immediately make it way, way simpler. So, according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, it's a shared pool of configurable computing resources. Right. I mean, what does that even mean in plain English? It's technically correct for sure, but it doesn't exactly help you picture it, does it? Okay, so let's try something different. Forget the technical jargon. Just think of the cloud as a massive, super high-tech apartment building. It's got all the basics, the power, the plumbing, the security guards at the main entrance, and all of that is managed by the landlord who, in our case, is the cloud provider. And just like in a real building, you've got options. It's not a one-size-fits-all deal. You get to choose exactly what kind of apartment you want to rent, which brings us to the different levels of service you can pick from. First up, you've got what's called Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS for short. This is basically you renting a totally empty apartment. The landlord gives you the physical space, the electricity, the water, but that's it. You have to bring in all your own furniture and appliances. In the cloud world, this means you get the raw computing power, but you're in charge of all the software. Then you've got the next level up, Platform as a Service, or PaaS. Think of this as renting a furnished apartment. The landlord's already put in the bed, the couch, the major appliances. You just have to show up with your clothes and personal stuff. Here, the provider manages the underlying operating system and tools, so you can just focus on your own applications. And finally, there's Software as a Service, which you probably know as SaaS. This is the full-blown, all-inclusive hotel experience. You don't worry about anything. The room is ready, it gets cleaned, room service is available. You just show up and use it. We're talking about things like Gmail or Dropbox. You don't manage a thing. You're just the guest. All right, so you've picked your apartment. Empty, furnished, or full-service hotel. But now we get to maybe the most important question of all. Who is responsible for locking the doors? This gets us to the absolute heart of cloud security, and it's called the shared responsibility model. And this slide lays it out perfectly. The cloud provider, our landlord, is responsible for the security of the cloud. That means protecting the physical buildings where the computers are, the core network, all that stuff. They secure the building. But you, the tenant, you're responsible for security in the cloud. That's your data, your apps, and deciding who gets a key. The landlord makes sure the building is safe, but you still have to remember to lock your own apartment door. Okay, the apartment analogy is great for understanding the concept, but what does locking your door actually look like in the real world? Let's pull back the curtain a little bit and look at a real example from Amazon Web Services, one of the biggest cloud providers out there. Whoa, okay, I know this looks complicated, but don't panic. Seriously, just think of this as the architect's blueprint for your own private floor in that giant apartment building. It's called a virtual private cloud, a VPC. And all it's really doing is mapping out different rooms, like a public lobby where anyone can visit your website, and a super secure safe room in the back for your private data. So we have the blueprint. How do we actually build the walls and put locks on the doors? Well, with these things right here, taken straight from the control panel. These inbound and outbound rules are your digital bouncers, and they decide exactly what traffic gets in and what traffic is allowed to leave. And that's the whole idea. These sets of rules, which are called security groups, are basically the high-tech keycard system for your apartment. They act as a virtual firewall, letting you get super specific. You can say things like, okay, only let website visitors in through the front door, and absolutely nothing else gets in anywhere else. Okay, this leads us perfectly into the final piece of our security puzzle. We've designed a secure floor plan, and we've installed a sophisticated keycard system on all the doors. But now,
Who do we actually give the keycards to, and what rooms are they allowed to access once they're inside?
This is all about something called Identity and Access Management, or IAM. And the ideas here are actually pretty simple. You have users, those are people or maybe even other applications. You can organize them into groups to make life easier, and then you attach policies to them, which are just rulebooks that define exactly what they're allowed to do. That policy is the programming on the keycard that tells it which doors it can open. Okay, so when you write one of those policies, it's going to look something like this. And I get it, that's just a wall of code and it looks super intimidating. But trust me, we're going to break this down into plain English right now, and you'll see it's actually not that scary at all. See? That's all it is. That whole block of code really just boils down to one simple rule, a sentence you can actually understand. The effect is to allow an action, in this case, run instances, which is just a fancy way to say launch a server. But here's the kicker. It only works under the condition that the user has proven who they are with multi-factor authentication. You are in complete control, telling the system exactly who can do what and when. It's incredibly powerful. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. The cloud, at the end of the day, is someone else's computer. The provider does a phenomenal job securing the building, but you, and only you, are the guardian of what happens inside your apartment. The tools are there, the locks are on the doors, but the responsibility is yours. So that just leaves one last question to chew on.